an impressive library of games and will mark something of a return to form for Sony after the difficulties that the PS3 brought, with developers sometimes being at war with the console's difficult architecture and players initially walled out by the high launch retail price. Thus far, there are still many games that are timeless and infinitely replayable on this console, and clearly Sony has no intention of dropping out of the console wars race. So here are 15 flagship games that we've deemed the most replayable on the PS4. Please note that we already know that games like Fortnite and PUBG are infinitely replayable, so we're not going to be including those in this list. Borderlands: The Handsome Collection. Missed out on the Borderlands craze from the previous generation of consoles? Well, you don't have to. Check out Borderlands: The Handsome Collection, featuring Borderlands 2 and Borderlands: The Pre-Sequel, the two latest games to release in the wonderfully cel-shaded Borderlands franchise. This will even prepare you for a later possible release of a Borderlands 3, though its existence is only speculative at this time. Fingers crossed to see a franchise continue. Overwatch. The wildly successful team-based phenomenon has succeeded beyond anyone's wildest dreams. From the casual player to the brutal competitor and everyone in between, Overwatch is accessible to all and exists as a monolith in gaming. With a bright and expanding cast of characters with varying abilities, invest as many hours as you please, perhaps turning it into some refined skill and eventually channeling it into becoming an Overwatch athlete if you so choose. After all, Overwatch does exist as a competitive video game sport. But nevertheless, it might be just as fun to kick around some of your friends, if they haven't become frustrated with your skill yet. Alternatively, invest yourself in the rich and evolving lore of the Overwatch franchise. Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege. This classic shooter franchise of conspiratorial intrigue, which started as far back as the first PlayStation and the Nintendo 64, continues to this day, enjoying popularity both as a competitive gaming sport and as a consumer title for game players of all levels. Rainbow Six Siege got off to a slow start, but with Ubisoft continually introducing updates and DLC for the game, including new multiplayer modes and maps, the player base and gameplay experience has grown to a package that in its current state serves as a testament to the power of listening to fan feedback and updating games to create an improved title. With the increased player base, you'll be sure to get your money's worth. Titanfall 2. For anyone on the fence about playing Titanfall 2, now is a good time to strike. The game, since release, has received many free updates, including new weapons, gameplay modes, and maps meant to bolster the sales for the game and increase the player base. Want to get your time's worth out of this one? Well, look no further than the greatly enhanced multiplayer, though it is arguably an improvement upon the first game in all dimensions. Since a new Titanfall is in development, you can even use your time spent here to practice and prepare yourself to experience the sequel. Dishonored 2. The sequel to 2012's Dishonored is a great improvement on the first title. While the first game was often described as being a bit too easy, the stealth action RPG hybrid gameplay experience here is more challenging and robust. Dishonored 2 also features two playable protagonists to choose from at the start, including Dishonored's Corvo, who appears here as one such choice along with Emily. As with the first game, Dishonored 2 also features different endings, this time also based on which character is chosen as the protagonist and not just how many people are killed. Newly introduced to Dishonored 2 are non-lethal offensive modes that incapacitate enemies to a degree, an alternative for those who want access to endings or game progression options that are contingent on not killing people. It's a game that rewards playing with your own style. Undertale. Undertale is one of the biggest name indie successes of the past generation. For the uninitiated who haven't played the game, what surrounds the popularity of it all? Its mystique. It may all sound impenetrable, confusing, and outlandish. Undertale seems fun, somewhat recognizable even if you're a fan of some old school games, but ultimately difficult to grasp. It's a package that ultimately defies explanation. Be sure to check this game out. There are many endings to view, and it's rewarding and interesting to see how your decisions impact the characters in the game, for better or for worse. Dark Souls Remastered. For those who missed out on Dark Souls when it all began, From Software has released Dark Souls Remastered, allowing players to discover what started the Souls-type game hype, without possibly worrying about being out of step by playing any of the sequel titles. The game is a complete experience on its own, but multiplayer is also a draw here. While the Souls series is regarded as closed for the time being, this is an excellent choice for those who may have placed their consoles from a previous generation away, or if they're simply looking for an improved experience. It doesn't hurt that Remastered is available on Xbox One, PS4, PC, and the Switch, too. Until Dawn. Typically, when one thinks of games with replayability, you may not see Horror Reach on others' lists. Sure, horror games can feature multiple endings, but the more you play them, you might become too acclimated to the scares, the placement of the enemies, or may have already learned the entirety of the game's plot, which is integral to the experience. But this is a little more complicated. A gameplay experience featuring 8 characters, wherein you have to make decisions that affect the lives of the characters in the game. Also important are flashbacks and flash forwards, and the butterfly effect, design ideas which connect everyone's fates. Your decisions require commitment, and the game forces it with autosaving, so no save scumming is allowed. Try your best to save everyone, if you can. Rocket League. One has to often appreciate how the most outlandish of game concepts can lead to great success. A team-based competitive game featuring cars that have to propel balls into nets would definitely seem to fit that formula, or break the mold in its own way. Since the game's launch years ago, Rocket League has also developed a competitive gaming structure that began in 2016 too, with people competing for prize money at the highest level in the Rocket League Championship Series. While the concept of Rocket League is simple enough, it's a highly engaging formula, the experience of which is multiplied several times over with friends, and the great aesthetic also enhances the fun. Stardew Valley. If you're missing the venerated Harvest Moon series, you may want to take a look at Stardew Valley, a pixel art farming simulation title that, since its 2016 release, has become available for all major platforms except for the 3DS. Another hallmark title in a list of indie successes this past generation, Stardew Valley's development was impressively spearheaded by one person. The game allows for multiplayer play via LAN and online, and gives players a great deal of flexibility in playing as they like, while also demanding their continuous attention to ensure the health of their character, resources, and the in-game world. Grand Theft Auto Online. Panned upon the initial release, Grand Theft Auto Online has since been significantly improved with updates. Primary draws include racing against other peers, a deathmatch mode, and adaptations of missions from GTA 5's story mode called Contact Missions. There are many options to choose from, greatly enabling player autonomy. Those features together create a great many ways in which your time can be spent playing. It's an incredibly unique combined offer of both structure and freedom. Hitman 2. The most recent release on our list, Hitman 2 features multiplayer options in the form of a newly introduced Ghost Mode and Sniper Assassination, great draws for replayability. In Ghost Mode, you can test yourself against the assassination skill of another opponent as you both complete the same objective, but in the cleanest and most efficient way. As you progress to the target, a ghost copy of your opponent may be visible as you play if they're in the same space of the map that you are. Watch and learn, or leave them in the dust, or act to make sure that they don't move ahead of you. Or for something less competitive, Sniper Assassination allows you to work with other players to bring down a target. Bloodborne. Somehow both a companion experience to the Souls series, while also existing as a contrasting and separate type of Souls game with its own aesthetic and game mechanic identity. Be sure to check out Bloodborne, from the makers of the Souls series. Bloodborne is more aggressive and fast-paced in comparison to the Souls series, and it also allows players to complete missions cooperatively or to challenge another player in combat. This is definitely an appealing game for those who love a great challenge in the form of New Game Plus, as there's something to be said about the increasing dullness of playing easy games for many people. Nier Automata. This stylish action game set in an abandoned post-apocalyptic world investigated by androids as part of their mission is just the beginning of the story. The story does not just twist and turn, it turns and turns and turns. The plot resembles something like the intense action combos that players can execute, and perhaps must execute, to survive against the foes in the game. There are multiple endings, but comprehending the true nature of the plot structure and understanding the game's conclusion and final statement is only possible by playing the game repeatedly. Repeated playthroughs are a choice that the game basically nudges you towards, but past a certain point, the game does generously reward your persistence, so do keep going or take a break if necessary if the game becomes too hard. Diablo 3. Until the inevitable release of Diablo 4, be sure to get in on the wildly popular Diablo 3, the success of which continues to agitate demand for a true sequel, to the point that Blizzard, long story short, caught a bit of flack from some waiting fans last year. Undoubtedly, one of the most appealing aspects of Diablo 3 is the ability to play it on any of the Xbox One, PS4, PC, or the Switch. And as of the last update, players can choose from one of 7 character classes. Multiplayer play is a significant way in which to get your money's worth, and the game being as successful as it is, you're not going to lack for others to play with.